guys, Eno here. So, there's something going on with Crimson Desert right now that I can't shake. And the more I think about it, the more it stands out. We've been seeing updates roll out really fast. Like quick, right? And I mean, like, they're not just bug fixes. They're not just minor balance tweaks. Yeah, no, I'm talking meaningful updates. Changes that affect how the game feels, how it plays, sometimes even how systems interact with each other. And they're coming in consistently, sometimes weekly, right? Sometimes it feels like daily. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a good thing. Yet, we would love that. As players, we want devs to be responsive. We want them to fix things quickly. We want them to improve the game. But here's where I started. Pause. Because if you take a step back and really think about how game development works, this pace starts to feel a little more unusual, okay? Let's ground this in reality for a second. Games like this, large-scale, system-heavy, open-world RPGs, don't move fast behind the scenes, right? Even small changes can take time. If you tweak combat, you have to test how it affects enemies, test how it affects animations, make sure it doesn't break progression, make sure it doesn't introduce new bugs and all that, right? And that's just one system. Now imagine doing that across multiple systems at once. AI, physics, traversal, UI, performance. That takes time. Weeks, sometimes months. So when we start seeing updates that feel significant coming out every week or so, you start to notice a disconnect. Because the speed we're seeing doesn't really match the time those changes usually take. So what's actually happening here? Because there are really only two possibilities. Either the developers are somehow building and implementing meaningful changes at an unusually fast rate, or these changes were already being worked on, maybe even finished, and are just being released very quickly. And if we're being realistic, it's probably the second one. This is what I like to call the pipeline effect, okay? In game development, teams don't just work on one update at a time. There are multiple updates happening simultaneously at all different stages. You've got one patch that's already live, another patch that's being finalized, one still in testing, and sometimes even more that are already done and just waiting to be released. So when those updates start coming out back to back, it creates the illusion that everything is happening way too quickly. But in actuality, in reality, a lot of that work was already done. And that's where things start to get interesting. Because if that's the case, if these updates were already prepared or partially prepared, then the question changes. It's no longer, how are they making these changes this fast? It now becomes, why are they choosing to release them this fast? Because timing matters. Releasing updates weekly does something psychologically. It creates momentum. It makes it feel like the game is constantly improving, constantly evolving, and constantly being worked on in real time. And that feeling is powerful, especially in today's gaming space where players are used to delayed patches, slow responses, or developers going quiet for long periods of time. So, when a game starts pushing out frequent updates, it stands out immediately. But here's where I think it's worth slowing down and asking a deeper question. Are we seeing real-time development, or are we seeing strategic release timing? Because those two are very different things. One is reactive. We saw an issue, we fixed it, here's the patch. The other is planned. We've already addressed this internally. Now let's decide when to show it. And again, I want to be clear here. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. Fast updates aren't a problem. In fact, in a lot of cases, they're a good sign. It means that the team has been working ahead. It means they have things ready. It means there's structure behind the scenes. But perception matters too. Because from a player's perspective, it can feel like the game is improving at an incredible pace. Like everything is being fixed instantly. Like progress is happening right in front of us in real time. And maybe some of it is, but maybe some of it was already there, just waiting to be unleashed. And that brings me to what I think is the most important part of this entire conversation. It's not about whether the updates are real. They are. It's not about whether the improvements exist. They do. It's about understanding the difference between development speed and release speed. Because those two things are not the same. Development speed is how fast something is actually being built. Release speed is how fast we're being shown what is already been built. And when those two get blurred together, that's when things start to feel confusing. That's when it feels like something doesn't quite add up. So when I look at Crimson Desert and I see these rapid updates, I don't necessarily think their developing is just insanely fast. I think they've been working on this longer than we realized. And now we're seeing it all at once, just spaced out. And again, that's not inherently negative, but it does change how I personally read the situation. Because now I'm not just looking at, what is being updated. I'm looking at when it's being updated. And more importantly, why? Because timing tells a story too. And once you start paying attention to that part, you stop just reacting to the updates as they happen, and you start seeing the pattern behind them. And that pattern is not about speed. It's not about presentation. And the moment you realize that, the whole thing starts to look different. Not worse, not better, just weird. Honestly, that's the part that makes this interesting.